Hello and welcome everyone to today's webinar, Lessons, Data, and Insights from a Massive Work From Home Experiment. I'm Musa Akel, Knotel's Director of Marketing, and I'll be moderating today's session. Thank you all for taking a little time out of your day to join us. We hope you and your families are all doing well and staying safe. Excited about the discussion today. We've got two of our top workplace strategists who I'll introduce here in a second, but lots to cover, so let's dive in. I would actually like to launch a poll for those of you on the line. Many people are still joining. Thanks again for joining the line. We're going to launch a poll and ask, prior to January 2020, how often do you work from home? And you should see that launched on the Zoom portal right now. We'll let it go for 30 or 45 seconds while I do a little bit of housekeeping. We will go again for 30 minutes today. We'll carve out about 5 minutes towards the end for some live Q&A. If you have questions, please submit those to content@knotel.com. You'll see that on the bottom of the screen, and we will do our best to take as many as possible. I know there are lots of questions, and Christina and Nathan have tons of great insights to share as well today. So it looks like so far, most people, rarely to never, worked from home before January 2020. I myself would also be in that category and can say we've been working from home here at Knotel for about a month. Definitely adjustment, but I can certainly see myself working from home more frequently when this is all over. And we're going to do a poll at the end and kind of get a sense for, in a couple of months when hopefully things return back to normal, what would your appetite be for working from home relative to what it was pre-COVID? Let this go for another 10 seconds or so. And we'll share some of these data out. Majority of people 1 day a week, not that many people more than 4 days a week. Thank you all for participating in that poll. Let's dive in because we've got a special guest again. Here's what we're going to cover today: the work from home experience. Here at Knotel, we've done some survey and collected some data from our employees about their experience working from home, with hopefully the goal being to help facilitate productivity, but also take away some lessons that we can apply when we all go back to the office in kind of the new normal. And Christina and Nathan will talk through some of the key takeaways and anchoring concepts from that survey. And then again, we will carve out time at the end for Q&A. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Christina Cooper and Nathan Portlock, two of our top workplace strategists. Christina and Nathan, thanks for joining. Do you guys mind just doing a quick a half-minute each on your background and experience?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Musa. So I'm Christina Cooper. I lead our workplace strategy and design team here at Knotel. Prior to coming to Knotel, I did workplace design and strategy at Gensler with clients ranging from financial services to high growth startups. I moved to Knotel back in 2018 with an interest to not only design and plan for a workplace, but to have the ability to influence kind of the whole employee experience throughout someone's experience on the Knotel platform, which is really what Knotel is all about. So,
and I'm Nathan Portlock. I am on Christina's team in New York office. Prior to Knotel, I'd also been in the Flex office space. And originally I studied architecture. I'd worked on building offices in Asia, the UK, and the US. And at graduate school, studied emerging technologies and real estate.
Great, thanks guys. All right, I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thanks. So we began this webinar by doing a poll of the audience to understand how prepared people felt to work from home. And I think, level of preparedness is a key factor when measuring successes people are having in the working from home or challenges. But some companies may have been really prepared for this and had a seamless transition, while others had to move super quickly to get online to work from home, and that it could be a challenge and people are struggling with it. But what we really want to focus on today and spend our time talking about is really whether you're someone who worked from home or not in the past. There's factors due to global pandemic that are impacting work experience for everyone. So we did some internal polling, which Nathan's going to really dive into and present our findings. But we wanted to focus really on measuring like human elements and what are the things that people maybe are enjoying while working from home or missing about being in the office, and that will really drive work experience of the future. So some of those factors that we looked at were around topics such as work-life balance. I think, if you're someone who worked from home a lot, your work-life balance is a little bit differently now because you probably work from home when your kids are at school, and now your kids are home and you have to be homeschooling and working. So that's kind of a difference. And on the flip side, if you're someone who, goes to work, works late, comes home from work, has a long commute, you get home really late and you don't get to spend as much time with your kids. So I think people are seeing a little bit of a balance there. And then inspiration, I think, there's a lot of content out there for us right now virtually, but we're all lacking kind of the ability to have inspiration through cultural experiences or coming into the office where your, logo or your values or all these other things are on the wall and you like feel a real purpose or connection to your company. So that's missing a bit. And then touch points, all virtual, or the only other touch point you can be having are with people who live in your house. So I think, again, if you're someone who is used to working from home, you normally still can go outside and talk to other people or connect with people in person. And now the ability to do that is limited. And then work settings, I can maybe move from my table to a sofa, but my environment stays mostly the same where, the option to go into an office and have a different environment there is appealing for people, or even to go work in a coffee shop or do that. So there's kind of like a lack of these third spaces or other spaces to do work. So we kind of focused a lot of the questions that we were asking to try and drive answers like this out, because we feel like that's a human experience, a human reaction to global pandemic and COVID. And if we can get to the findings here, we can really drive what people would desire about coming back to an office or a workplace in the future.
Yeah, Christina, one of the interesting takeaways for me is, is that we're collecting a lot of data now and over the last several weeks on how this is going. I think one of the last major high-profile studies, academic studies on work from home, was done in 2014 by a Stanford professor, and the findings from that, I think, suggest that people are more productive when they work from home, but it also cites some of the things that they are not able to get from working from home in terms of social, human interaction, creative problem solving as well. So it's interesting now to kind of see this play out in real time across the, in the entire country, and in some cases the entire globe, to see how this plays out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so for our experiment, it started off because of our dress rehearsal work from home day on Friday, March 13th. The following Monday, work from home was rolled out for everyone in the company. And then that Friday, a week later, we started this survey. It started off as one question per day with 77 participants. The questions were open-ended, agree, disagree, and multiple choice. And answers were posted in the channel for all the group's visibility and use, with responses alternating between anonymous and non-anonymous. Before each question was asked, the participants were alerted as to the question type and anonymity status. Previous research by our Workplace Strategy group for other sorts of planning exercises has indicated that 11 a.m. is the time that most people are active at work. We've backed that up with Slack analytics to show that's when everyone is available. We tested the hypothesis running questions at different times of day, and 11 a.m. really was the highest response rate. We also measured the response rate against question type and anonymity status. Multiple choice, non-anonymous 11 a.m. questions get the highest response rates for our firm, around 50%. Some of the things that we learned from ourselves were that design for Zoom swag can connect employees who are now geographically separated, providing a sense of community. That employees that we asked wanted soft, comfortable clothes, and the most popular choice for stretchy pants or sweatshirt. Employer-provided IT assets can make employees feel valued and more productive. And about a quarter of respondents wanted wireless headphones. Employee-sponsored benefits that we can't access now might need to change for employees that choose to stay work from home more. And that also sort of underscores the flexibility and readiness of an employer. Among Knotel employees, internet service provider stipends or mindfulness app subscriptions were about the most preferred EAT benefits. So across our 200 plus data points, we began to see some trends emerging in employee experience. One of the questions we asked on March 23rd, two questions actually, what is the best part of your work from home setup and what is the worst part of your work from home setup, helped us highlight areas that pre-COVID offices need to rely on or were relying on to attract workers, and underscored areas in which a workplace outside the home can never compete. So recurring themes for successes of the workplace include ergonomic furniture, food parks, family boundaries, reduced distractions, and connections with colleagues. Areas that offices fail to compete with work from home arrangements will always include the commute, what you're expected to wear, and reductions in time spent with family. We also saw a bunch of pain points emerging from this work from home experiment, and shortcomings today include too many digital happy hours, especially in those first couple weeks. Mixed success with social connections, those little 10 seconds in the corridor or 5 minutes before long meetings that we spend are actually very important. And when we miss those, we lose those connections with employees that we're not working on day to day. Residential space arrangements, especially in New York, are very difficult. And those also lead to Zoom issues. We've all played around with virtual backgrounds, I'm sure. And I can't speak to it myself, but so many colleagues are really having a different burden right now with childcare arrangements, whether they have changed their schedules or whether different partners take on different shifts. That in itself is not typical of many work from home situations that's specific to schools being closed. And that goes back to what Christina was saying.
Very interesting, Nathan. And for those of you who missed out last week, we also did a session with two of our other colleagues who are certified ergonomics professionals. And so if you're interested, I've got my standing desk on a stack of books aligned right below my line of sight, which I learned last week. And I was smiling, Nathan, when you covered the too many digital happy hours. Certainly there was an abundance of those in the early days of the new work from home experience. I think they've tapered off a little bit, but certainly good to see colleagues when we've been home for so long.
Yeah, I think one a week is a nice balance. All right, so across our, let's see, gleaning all these insights and organizing our findings, we found 3 emerging anchoring concepts from this first month we've spent at home. These concepts are the basis around which Knotel will shape its post-COVID workplace, both in redesigns for our existing customers and in the development of new products and services. Our first concept, which was reiterated in our survey question that we asked our coworkers today, 81% of responses centered around this, is the main drive of why people come into an office. The community empowers employees. Great employees attract great employees to successful companies. They want to be around each other, bounce ideas off one another, connect over extracurricular affairs, network internally, and have visibility into cross-functional groups. That's all disappeared right now. In March 2020, employees responding to our survey indicated that they need the team, they miss the action, they're not able to connect, they want to hear about what everyone's working on, and they're nostalgic for time spent with my team. Successful employers will need to celebrate their employees as groups rather than individuals. Spaces, whether those are dining facilities or all-hand spaces, can really promote this direction of thinking rather than solo recognition of cubicles in private offices. Benefits and company rituals will also need to evolve to include all those remote workers or workers that now choose to become more work from home to make the most of limited time that all employees can gather together.
Interesting. And Nathan, both of you know, I took the survey as well. And the thing I miss most about the office, and I think many of us probably feel the same way, is just the human interaction, being able to see all of you in person and chat and catch up. And I don't have monitors or set up here, so I'm making do the best I can. But interesting to see how everyone is reacting. I too, like you, Nathan, have no kids, and so fortunate to not have to do that. I know many parents are also kind of schooling as well during the day. So interesting takeaways here.
Our second emerging point that all employers are going to have to face is that home really is a tool for productivity, and working from home will become one of the settings in our activity-based work catalog. Employers will need to consider policies that as a component in the design of their workplace. Elimination of a commute is something that no office will ever compete with, and that time redeposited means more time with your children, with your partner, with yourself. And this benefit will continue to make many employees choose working from home for certain days or certain tasks. So a prepared employer will design flexible policies to attract employees. Presenteeism as a as a concept of I need to see my people in their seats will be de-emphasized because certain exposure risks just won't be necessary, that you won't need to have everyone in a seat all the time. We now know how to connect everyone. Co-working and residential design elements that led activity-based working research a decade ago, challenging assumptions as to what a productive workplace looked like and how it felt, and what emotions it triggered to increase productivity. Academic research has suggested that working from a couch or a high-top bar tricks the brain into thinking that it's not an office. Clients have anchored the design of their offices as better than home in order to attract employees. Whether the office needs to look like a home or whether the home is an option is a subject of ongoing research. Really a big new thing that this will mean for our team specifically is that we can't just say 200 employees means 200 dedicated desks. We'll have to evolve new planning metrics around collaboration, using that people will work from home for certain times, and that work styles and headcount will all really sort of change after this.
That's great, Nathan. We've got a question from David that I'm going to save until the end, but it's about how do we measure the experience of the office and the workspace. So let's flag that, Nathan and Christina. I know you have some insights on ways to measure the employee experience, both quantitatively and qualitatively. We'll save that one for the end. Thanks for the question, David.
David, your question might be best answered by this one. So when you say sort of what is a successful workplace, it really is a place that people want to be. And if you look at that, that's really how retail's had to compete recently in real estate. That for any sort of task-based shopping, you can do it online. Anything that's more of an errand, you don't need to go to a store for anymore, pre-COVID at least. And the successful and innovative retailers are really thinking about how do you design a store to get a brick and mortar store to get people into it. And that's really one trend that we're going to see offices go more towards. During the rise of e-commerce and the reduction in friction of different utilitarian purchases, any retailers that got people into their stores found ways to really build their brand equity. We think that's going to totally translate to offices. We're beginning to see successful workplaces having a similar experiential requirement. Repetitive digital work, heads down tasks, and basic written communication can happen from the comfort of your couch. But our all hands meetings, team building, socializing, product demos, in-person collaboration tools, and proof of concepts are the key defining features of successful experientially focused office. Working from home works for many tasks, but social distancing can't really help non-remote businesses thrive with 100% remote employees. The future of the workplace will continue to evolve our space planning metrics. The industry will likely see a reduced focus on per person space allotments, like private offices, 150 square feet per person, an increasing focus on activities that enable and celebrate in-person gatherings. The main point here at the end that I really want to flag is that brand equity and culture will become increasingly interdependent, and many will become a greater differentiating factor between employers. If you step off an elevator into a brand experience that justifies the now known inconveniences of commuting, time away from your home, further identify the office as a space designed to showcase and enable a company's mission. Back to David's question, Christina, did you want to talk about how you think we'd like to measure a really successful office in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think in kind of thinking about all this, we're trying to drive at what are the things that are going to drive people into the office in general. And to a lot of the points that Nathan talked about, people can be productive at home and people are going to want to work from home. And I think when in the future, when more companies are allowing people to work from home, a really good measure of a successful office is going to be how often are people coming to it. If they don't have to be there because that's policy. I think that what we're finding is there's a lot of reasons that are still going to draw people to the office. And when you see people coming together and you have a good count on, how many people are there daily, I think that'll be a really good test to understand the experience that your workplace is providing for your employees.
And it might not be people on average all the time. It might be if you have Wednesday lunches with everyone, that if you get 80% of people to show up to that, that could be a very successful office. Of course, there'll always be a certain amount of employees traveling or other reasons they wouldn't come in. But looking at sort of Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 show up rates will, I think, totally change. And we'll have to use those rates as we plan space for these people.
Yeah, and I think like a lot of data around, people use badge swipe data or they use sensor data and all these other things about occupancy. But if you're measuring that in a space where people kind of have to show up no matter what, it's not that telling. But if you're measuring it in a space where people have the option of working from home or working somewhere else, it'll start to give us a little bit more information on that.
And I certainly, Nathan and Christina, miss our Wednesday lunches. I
Me
eagerly
too.
look forward to the day when we're allowed to go back to the office. We've got a couple more questions. I'll take, let's do one right now. And a reminder, you can submit questions in about 5 minutes. We'll kind of wrap up and make sure that we allow Nathan and Christina to answer some of your questions. Chris asks, Chris and everyone else, this is recorded and we will share out the recording in the session afterwards, so everyone can access this if there are certain slides. For those of you maybe looking to potentially launch your own work from home survey. We also have a question from Ashton. I want both of your inputs on this. There's been tons of commentary lately on the post-COVID office. I know you guys are actually in the weeds working on some of these things with clients. Nathan, Christina, you want to call out one or two observations that you think you find most fascinating? I've read a ton on air filtration, and Nathan, you just alluded to densification a little while ago. What are you guys seeing? What are some of the most interesting things you think we will see, in 3, 4, 5 months once we're back in the offices and things kind of get back to normal?
You want to go,
I
Nathan?
think, yeah, sure. Reading, I mean, there's so many of webinars, not unlike this, great thought pieces, academic research going into this right now. But you can, so far, I can kind of bucket them all into sort of two categories. There's the 6-foot distance, low density office. Things need to be hygienic. It might look like a hospital, which has merit and may happen. That may be the short term. Our phased reentry is something that we're really planning and studying right now. That what happens when some cities and some employees go back to work is different than when there's a vaccine and everyone can resume. But the other side of it that I'm seeing, to me, seems a lot more optimistic, is that the office will be really, really wonderful later. That as people don't have to be there, you have to really design it to be a place to promote collaboration. There was a fantastic talk yesterday led by Portlock talking about how it sounds kind of crazy right now to talk about increased density. We're not talking about cramming in workstations and making call center like places. We're talking about a place that people want to gather and humans want to be around humans. And I think that's more exciting to look forward to. So we also have to design what the phased reentry of that is. And it's, maybe it is Xing off every other desk for the short term. But the idea of going in, of taking the subway for 45 minutes to go into a sterile office and be very far away from my colleagues doesn't really excite me.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything Nathan said. And I think the exciting part about what the future workplace could look like after this, like, I agree, there's things we have to do immediately, and social distancing will be important at the beginning of this. But I think in the future, I think more people will be willing to have the conversation of, I don't actually need one desk per person, which is really, I don't think that many people are thinking that way. Or, I mean, people talk about it, but don't always practice it. People are nervous about it. And there's lots of things around like having your own space that people are worried about giving up. And I think this is pushing us, we've been talking about this as workplace strategists and designers for a long time, but this is kind of pushing a lot of people to be thinking this way, which really lends itself to a great work experience, because less of your space can be designated for desks and can be for different activities, whether that's social space or more open kitchen space or whatever, that really bring like culture and brand and experience to the workplace.
Great. Let's do one more poll. This is essentially the same poll we started the session with. Kind of interesting to see the delta, and we'll share these some of these numbers out. But I'm going to launch the second poll now, and as I do, I'm going to just quickly share. So hopefully you should see on your screen, post-COVID, how often would you like to work from home? So let's take a couple seconds and fill this out. Again, myself, I was in the office every day, Monday through Friday. I live down here in the Village in New York City. It was not a far commute, and I just love the big monitor, and I missed the desk chair, and so I was always in the office. I think kind of post-COVID, once things start to again get back to normal, I would certainly be interested in working from home. At least one day every 2 weeks, maybe. if not more. I think I saw something recently, Christina, Nathan, that like global numbers for work from home were about 4% pre-COVID, and we expect them to jump somewhere close to 25% once this is all said and done. So certainly, there will be, massive changes to the way we work once this is all said and done. So it looks like 49%, the majority are saying 2 to 3 days a week, which is quite significant, quite different from what we saw earlier. So kind of similar to my personal experience here. The next top answer is 1 day a week, 27%. Rarely to never. Most people seem to want to be back in the offices. Thanks, guys, for taking this poll as well. I want to do a couple more questions for
Musa, if I can just jump in there about that poll.
Please.
What was the percentage that people said as a default or more than 4 days a week?
Post-COVID, it was 0% for as a default, 11% for 4 days a week.
So, I mean, that really indicates that people do miss leaving their homes, that people really need that space. I mean, one of the successes of an office that we haven't really measured exactly is what do you need as a separate place from where you live, from where you eat? That there's a whole behavioral component to having that sort of third place that that offices provide, and maybe it's not 5 days a week, but you still need some component of it.
Yeah, let's do a couple of questions, and before I tee up these questions, just want to make sure that everyone has contact information. If you're interested in Workspace, talking to Knotel, learning more about our portfolio of supply in several cities around the world, please email us, growth@knotel.com. If you just have questions and want to kind of maybe talk to Christina or Nathan more and hear from some of our workplace strategists for kind of some of our expertise, please email content@knotel.com. We've got a wealth of resources on our resource center on the website. This includes the ergonomics session we did last week. Our CEO, Amol Sarva, has been talking to leaders of industry and top professionals as well. And he will be, by the way, this Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Amol will be joined by Uber's head of real estate, Mike Huko, who Uber is a customer of ours at Knotel. Very excited to hear from Mike and kind of understand how global heads of real estate for Fortune 500 companies and large enterprises are planning space and portfolio among in the midst of a pandemic. So make sure you see the link there if you're interested in signing up. Let's do a couple questions before we wrap up and send everybody back to their day. This is from Michael, Christina, or Nathan. How do you think work from home will impact your own experience in the office? You guys have spoke to that a little bit, but give us a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I think, so prior to this, I probably worked from home. I mean, I tried to do 1 day a week, and then I feel like that 1 day a week became a little bit less because of different meetings or different things I had to go to, which you can't control always. But I do feel like there's a future of, like, I felt a little bit guilty or something, saying if I'm home that day, I can't do that. But now I think we'll be surrounded by a lot of people who are willing to just work from home maybe 1 day a week or not. So it's like you'll feel a little bit differently saying that you're working from home or you can't make something in person, you have to do it digitally, like virtually or anything like that. I think the other part of it too is in the office. I mostly work this way already because we didn't have desks for every single person in our office, but just working in different places within the office and not being tied to my desk, because I definitely don't have a good desk setup. I have a good table, but I don't have monitors or anything here, and I'm doing fine. So I feel like being tied to that stuff, I'll be less likely to care about even when we go back.
You do have a whiteboard though, Christina, don't you?
I do have a whiteboard, yeah.
Quite the luxury.
It's important.
Nathan, any final thoughts, takeaways, maybe any advice for other workplace strategists or anthropologists on the line looking to better understand and optimize employee experience in the office?
Yeah, interesting you said anthropologists, and this sort of gets back at that last question. The behavioral changes after this will be huge, and we can't answer those with surveys alone. It's going to take psychologists and technologists and all sorts of other ways researching what we need and what we get. It's interesting what Christina just said about like whether you feel guilty or not working from home, and how people sort of ignore your calendar hold and book you in a meeting that you have to be in person. I think all of those attitudes will change a lot too. So it'll be interesting to see. I think our team might start with scheduling, alternate Wednesday mornings. Um, but um, but we'll see. Yeah, no, lots of interesting research that we're getting out of this time right now, and I'm sure that this will only lead to better designed offices in the future.
Absolutely. And last point for me, I meant to mention this earlier. And Nathan, you and I talked about this the other day. Google's former head of HR, Laszlo Block, he's done quite a bit of work and research into this. And I think he said something like the optimal work from home days per week was 1.5. So you get enough of the ability to stay home, but then certainly a couple of days in the office to facilitate some of that human interaction, creative problem solving, and innovation. So obviously, I think the big takeaway for me is it depends, and there's no one size fits all. So we will continue to collect data and share these best practices and host more sessions like this. Again, if you can join us this Friday at 1 p.m., excited to hear from Uber's head of real estate, Mike Huko, who'll be joined by our CEO, Amol Sarva. Thank you all for taking time from your day to join us. Hope we added some value to your life. Hope you found the session helpful. And please be safe. Stay safe out there. We'll see you next time.